Hi you guys, this is Diana and this is my Confessions of a Fat Girl diary. I have seen so many of them and I could relate to each and every one of them, and I think my takeaway from them was that for so long while I was doing these bad habits, I thought I was alone. I thought that I was the only crazy person out there who was having to deal with these things, who had these behaviors that are just not normal. And a lot of those times, I mean, yes, there was shame attached to them, but it was also a whole bunch of loneliness and feeling isolated and thinking like how fucked up those thoughts were, how fucked up those actions were, and how I thought I was the only one doing them. But to hear everyone's stories, everyone's struggles, it kind of, I could relate to them, but at the same time, in some twisted level, it made me feel okay. It helped me feel normal. It helped me realize that while I was living my own struggle, other people were also struggling and were also doing those same behaviors, and that I wasn't that crazy. Not that they were good choices, however, you know, even though I was going through those things at that point alone and doing those bad choices alone sometimes, I now know that it wasn't something crazy that I did because I was choosing to do them. I mean, even though, yeah, I was choosing to do them, I can now sit back and realize that it was part of the food addiction, that like drug addiction or alcohol addiction, food addiction is real, and that we have some of the same tendencies of the other addictions, like the secretiveness. And because a lot of these in my list are secretive behaviors, and though from the behaviors that you guys shared, it sounds the same. So I'm going to kind of go in chronological order of how and what I did when I was younger to like now, well, before surgery, and so I'll just get started. As a kid, I mentioned in my first video, you know, that I was a big baby, and I just kind of my weight just went up from there. But in all reality, you know, when I was a little kid, you know, I ate what my mom gave me, type of thing. So it wasn't really overeating then. And my mom is a huge health nut type of person. I am the only overweight person in my family. So, I mean, there was never junk food in my house. And I'll get to that one in a little bit. But so as a kid, I can look back on it, and even when I was little, I knew I was doing it. I knew that I was overeating to rebel. That was my way of rebelling against my mom or against the situation. I was brought up to be like to be a good girl, to say yes ma'am, no sir, you know, type of thing, and like my older sister, she was the rebel of the two, and I saw the trouble that she would get into, and I didn't want to get in trouble, so my misbehavior was in what I ate and how much I ate. I remember going to restaurants, even like in middle school type of thing, and my mom would point out some of the healthier options, and if she did that on purpose, I would choose the cheesiest, biggest meal I could find, something that I knew would upset her, and I did that because that was my way of rebelling. And like I mentioned, so confession number 2, I mentioned before that, well, like 2 seconds ago, type of thing, that my mom's really health nut. So we didn't have snacks at my house. We didn't have junk food laying around the house. So when I would go to my friend's house, that was my playground, my eating playground of when I would have treats and I would have all those things that I couldn't have at home. I remember thinking like certain friends had certain foods at their house, and I remember thinking, if I want this thing, I can go to her house because I know I can get that there. And I would eat. I would go to town. It was like, it wasn't even like a play date. Let's go play. No, it was like, let's eat. And what other snacks do you have? And what snacks can I have? And it wasn't even like chips and stuff. No, it was like food. Like, I remember one friend, her mom always had like Chef Boyardee, the raviolis, and we never had that at my house. So I wanted to go to her house to have that. Another friend, her mom made the best grilled cheese sandwiches. I had to go to her house if I wanted a grilled cheese sandwich. Things like that. Again, and I see that now, and it's like, how sad is that? But I mean, I didn't have a car. I was little, but even then, I knew what I wanted, and I figured out how to get it. As I grew up, sorry, I'm having to look at my notes. As I grew up, I remember, I think I've mentioned this in another video, when I realized I was overweight. It was like not in middle school, I apologize. It was in elementary. It was like in 2nd or 3rd grade, maybe even, no, not 4th. It was probably 2nd or 3rd grade, and we were weighing ourselves, and I realized that I weighed a whole lot more than everybody else. I think that's when it really hit me that size and weight could be compared, and that my size had a number attached to it. And then I think it all went downhill from there. And a way that I figured out, because I realized when so what I'm getting to is when I was in middle school and high school, I realized that my weight and my eating habits were out of control. So I tried so many diets, and I'm talking about diets that probably didn't have names. It was just like, eat this or eat that. I do remember doing like the cabbage soup diet, and I remember, I don't even know what they were called, but there were the diet pills that you could get at Walgreens. I remember buying those, and I was in high school. But it was when okay, so I'm a Latina, so we have a quinceañera. Well, you don't have to, but in my family, we had a quinceañera. For my quinceañera, I remember trying to find a dress was really hard, because the quinceañera dresses that they had were small sizes, because you're supposed to be 15 and small and tiny as a teenager. So we had to order mine as a wedding dress and then pay extra for it to come in pink. And I remember that I wanted to fit into that dress, and because I remember my mom ordered a size smaller than what I needed, and she said, "You're gonna lose weight for it, so might as well get a smaller size, and by the time your quinceañera comes around, you'll fit into it." And I took that to heart. It was such a motivation, because I loved my dress. It was so pretty. And I worked out like crazy, and I was trying to eat right, but the weight wasn't coming off as fast as I wanted it to. So that's when I dabbled with anorexia. But I couldn't do anorexia because that meant not eating. So I would eat, and it was not even it wasn't even like binging and then purging type of thing. And the reason why I say not binging and purging was because to me binging is more like you overeat and then everything comes out. But no, I wouldn't eat anything. So I wouldn't eat anything for breakfast or lunch, and then for dinner I would eat my regular dinner portion, and then I'd go and throw it up. And I did that for a lot of months leading up to my quinceañera. The day of my quinceañera, when I tried on my dress, I was swimming in the dress, and I still remember people coming up to me and saying, "Oh, you look so pretty, you lost so much weight," and I loved it. But looking back on those pictures, I looked like death. I had no color in my skin. This was all sunken in. I didn't look healthy. I looked thinner, but I didn't look healthy in it. But to people, because I had lost weight, because I would look thinner, that automatically meant that I was healthier. And obviously that didn't last forever, because I love food. But I still remember the guilt. I felt more guilty eating than I did when I was throwing up. And the fact that nobody questioned how I was losing weight, or why I wasn't eating breakfast at home, or why I wasn't taking food for lunch or anything like that. No one questioned it. You know, I guess all they saw was that I was getting thinner, and that's all that mattered. So that was number 3. Number 4. I'm lactose intolerant. I've been lactose intolerant since I was a kid. I just didn't know it, or I didn't realize, or I didn't make the connection. My mom didn't make the connection. But it was in high school, and not in high school. In high school, it was like moderate lactose intolerancy. But when I got into college, it was really bad. I felt like if I just looked at dairy, I'd have a side effect to it. And I knew that it would do that to me. So I used dairy. I would eat, because I loved, like, my favorite meal was like mac and cheese. Cheese on everything and anything. Cheese enchiladas, nachos, anything like that. And I knew that after eating whatever it was, ice cream, whatever, I knew that I had about a 20-minute window to get home, because it was going to come out of me one way or the other. And while I was eating it, I was enjoying it. I was so happy. But as soon as the discomfort would come in, I saw it as a consequence. I remember so many times, like, holding my stomach and telling myself, "You see, that's what you get. Why'd you eat it?" And it was, and I used it as a consequence. It's sickening, really, like, when I think back on it. And that's when I was, and I did it, and I would do that through college. And I really didn't care much to it. The effects that it would have, physical effects, and how it would drain me of energy afterwards. I didn't care, because I saw it as, I can eat it, but it's going to come out of me, and I'll pay the consequences for my bad actions. And it wasn't until probably, I was probably like 23, when I started listening to my body and just really, like, psychoanalyzing my actions and thinking, why am I punishing myself? Why am I punishing my body? Why am I making myself feel this much pain and discomfort for 10 minutes of pleasure? It's not worth it. Those 10-15 minutes of pleasure meant 2 to 3 hours of pain. And it's been over 10 years since I've had dairy. Now after, fast forwarding kind of, now after surgery, I've noticed that I can tolerate dairy, and I didn't even try it on purpose type of thing. Actually, no, I guess it was on purpose. We went to a Greek place, and I had a gyro, and they put the yogurt sauce on it. And it was when TMI, I was a bit constipated, so I thought maybe this will help move things along, and it didn't. And that's when I realized that, hey, I can tolerate dairy. Not so much, and that's really, that and the Enlightened ice creams are the only two dairies that I've tried, and I haven't had any bad consequences to it. But going back to the topic at hand, yeah, I would use dairy as a punishment for my bad eating. Number 5. Okay, so I mentioned that as a kid, I would overeat as a way to rebel. Well, I found that as an adult, yes, I'm an emotional eater. If I celebrated, I coddled myself. I mean, you name it. Was happy, anger, sad, celebration, everything was with food. But it was also a way to protect myself. I always thought, if a guy is going to like me, he's going to like me no matter what size I am. And that was kind of an excuse that I would use. And I can see that now. Actually, I realized that like 2 years or 3 years ago, but that has nothing to do with this. But what I meant is, I come from a divorced family. My mom divorced my dad when I was 4, and we moved from California to Texas. And a lot of the women in my life around me have had very bad experiences with men. And I can see how that overeating and getting heavier was my way of weeding out the bad guys. I figured the guy that I'm going to be with is going to be so fantastic that he's going to love me for who I am, including all my roles. And he's going to love me for who I am and not my size. Which is something that I still hope for. But instead of not the size of my rolls, how much excess skin I'm going to have, type of thing. But it was a way to protect myself. It was a way for me not to have to expose myself to the potential of getting hurt. And at the end, I only ended up hurting myself. Because here I am 34. There is no ring on this finger. And even when this is the weight loss, even though I've had weight loss surgery, weight loss journey is forever and a mile, to keep going type of thing. And I don't think it'll ever end. In the sense that I'm always going to have an overeater's mind type of thing. I'm always going to look at food for comfort. I'm always going to have that want and the desire to eat good food. By good food, I mean yummy food. But I can now realize that that was only hurting me in the end, type of thing. Number 6. Sorry, I made really short notes and I figured I'd remember what that meant. I don't remember what that meant, so I'm just gonna skip it. Okay, I'll tell you this one. Well, I'll move over to number 7. Sorry, I'm in my head type of thing. I mentioned before I have 2 sisters. My little sister, her name is Lily. We are 14 years apart, and I helped raise that little girl, and I love her to death. And she is my biggest cheerleader. God, that little girl can make... Anyways, she's not little. She's 20. But anyways, she... Whenever I would say, oh my gosh, look at my fat, she was like, Diana, that's not fat. It's just skin. She doesn't like the word fat because she thinks that in some way it hurts my feelings. And I've told her, I'm like, it's a fact. I am fat. I am overweight. This is called fat. Like the actual fat type of thing. Anyways, she is so into sports, so into working out. She played varsity soccer throughout high school, and now in college she plays ultimate frisbee, and she did cross country. And anyways, I would pick her up after practice and I would find a reason to run an errand. Mind you, she got out of practice around 6, and I knew that when she got out from practice she was starving. But I would figure out an errand that I had to run, like to the mall, to Target, to any place like that. And I would tell her, hey, I'm gonna go here, but if you want a snack, we can go pick something up. And of course, she would say yes. So I'd be like, okay, we're going here. These are the fast food restaurants that are on our way there. And we would stop and get a snack. Whether it was like a chicken sandwich or from Jack in Box or from Whataburger or McDonald's or any place like that. And I would go run the errand and then we'd get home. And I would have dinner and act like we never had any other snack. And my little sister would sometimes not have dinner at home. She would just be like, I'm not hungry. Or sometimes she would just have less. And I taught her how to hide the evidence. We would roll down the window so the car wouldn't smell. We would throw the trash out before we got home. And I feel bad just thinking that I taught her negative eating habits. I taught her that it was okay to hide food, that it was okay to, and that you should need to feel shame for what you're eating. Since I skipped one, I guess it's number 7. It goes, it's overeating, how I would find ways to overeat. Either, I remember I would always have the biggest amount of food on my plate. And then, well, first of all, when my mom would serve us dinner, she would serve what she knew was a serving size. And I realized that early on. So then I would just tell my mom, oh, I'll serve myself. And I would serve myself relatively what looked like a serving size, but I would find a way to make it, like, serve myself more, but try to make it look like it was the same amount as everybody else. And then I would go back for seconds. But then I read something that was like, just don't have seconds, portion control. So then I just thought, okay, I can't have seconds, but I can fill up my plate the first time. Another thing that I would do was, there was a rule in my house that if you cooked dinner, you didn't have to do dishes. So even if I cooked dinner, I would help with the dishes, that in the sense that I would put the leftover food in containers. And while I was putting the leftover food in the containers, I would be eating. I'd sneak, spoonfuls of food into my mouth. Thinking, so that nobody would catch me, type of thing. And so if I had, whether it was 1 serving or 2 servings of something, I would then eat more. I remember not having a problem with cold leftovers. If I went to the fridge and my mom would be like, make sure you get an apple, or make sure you get, some healthy snack, I would do that. But before I did that, I would take a spoonful of whatever leftovers we had in the fridge. I didn't care if they were cold or not. Cold spaghetti, cold anything. I'd take food from that. Number 8. Something that I remember, and I know that I pass this behavior to my little sister. And when my little sister does it, I see myself in her, and I realize I didn't do a good enough job of hiding it, which is getting upset when somebody takes food off my plate. Or like if somebody said, oh, could I have I want to try your plate, I would make sure to give them a really small bite, or give them a piece. I'd make sure they'd get a piece of vegetable, let's just say that. Or I'd make sure to give them what I didn't like, type of thing, or what I wouldn't mind eating. Or if the person was picking off my plate, I was very conscious of how much they were taking from my plate, type of thing. And I mean, we all know serving sizes in America, they're huge. There was no reason for me to eat the entire thing. And was I really going to miss that forkful? No, I didn't need that forkful, but it was upsetting that you were getting some of my food. And then they would be like, oh, you can have some of mine. It's like, no, I don't want your food. I want my food. I know what I ordered, and I know why I ordered it. So if you wanted what I'm getting, why didn't you get it? Type of thing. It kind of reminds me of an episode of Friends when Joey's like, this is my food, don't touch it. Anyways. But yeah, I see my little sister and how she protects her food and how she'll write her name on leftover food, like on leftovers from like a restaurant, and that's learned behavior, and she learned it from me. Number 9, and this is not so much a behavior that I did, it's more of a thought that I had, and I didn't think it was that bad of a thought when I thought it back then, but now that I think about it now, I can see how just fucked up it was. Okay, so I've mentioned before that I had PCOS. Right before when I was told when I was 14 or 15, I was diagnosed with PCOS. And at that time I was given medication, but I didn't like the side effects of the medication, you know, like feeling like you're gonna die and your cramps are just gonna rip your body in half, and then having Niagara Falls for like 10 plus days. I didn't like that. So I was like, I don't need a period. So then like, I think I pretended to take medication. Sorry, I'm getting voicemail call. Anyways, and I mentioned that I left it untreated. I left it untreated for many years. It was my second year teaching when I decided to take care of it. And I remember thinking, because I remember they had to do an ultrasound to make sure that everything was, I mean, they did the blood work, but to truly make sure and because I haven't had a period for over, 5 to 7 years, they needed to do an ultrasound. I remember hoping that they would find like a tumor, that they would find cancer, you guys. I remember thinking, wouldn't it be great? But then I was like, oh, but it has to be benign, duh, right? Because that's the way life works, right? I remember thinking, because then I'll get really sick and I'll lose weight. So I thought that beating or having cancer was an easier way to lose weight than actually work out and stop eating bad food. And when I think of all the people that actually do deal with cancer, and how in my head that was the easy solution, just to be sick. Okay. And I thought I had 10, but that was my 10th. That was my 9th one, and I'll stop there. But yeah, that's how fucked up. That's what I thought was my solution to lose weight. Thankfully, everything came out clear, and I'm healthy, and sorry, my mom keeps calling, so I need to wrap this up. And plus, I'm at almost 30 minutes. Oh my gosh. But yes, choosing to have weight loss surgery changed my life, and I'm only 2 months out, and I can see me having healthier eating habits, and sometimes those wants to have junk food or have fast food or have just carbs comes into mind, but I now have a tool that will help me make better choices, that even if I slip and I do have a bad food, a naughty food, I know I can never eat the same amount that I used to eat. So wow, I really do need to wrap this up, and bless your heart, and thank you so much if you have heard me ramble on for going on 30 minutes. Since this is a tag, I tag anyone. If you've been watching this, I tag you to do it. But I also do want to tag, and sorry, I have to look at, I was going to write them down, and then obviously I did not. Otherwise, I would have them on hand. Oh my gosh. Okay, here we go. I'm so sorry, you guys. Okay, so I'm tagging Amber M. I'm tagging everyone that I know hasn't had weight loss surgery yet. Basically. I really should have done this beforehand. I apologize. I will link your name to my video at the bottom. I know that Lost Ange Found, I know you already had your surgery, but somebody already tagged you, but I would like to tag you as well on it. VSG for Baby B, I'm tagging you in it, my dear. And anybody else, I will put you in the comments thingy. Thank you so much for listening to me. Sending you much love. Bye, you guys.